Hey everybody, welcome back to the layout. And today we take a look at what we've done on the back side of the layout, on the other side of those mountains. Since about mid-August or early September, I've been slowly working on the back side. And today we have an update. Hopefully by the end of the year, we can get it finished.
Now, I wish I had taken a picture before I started working on this thing. But the first thing I had to do was to square off the backside of the mountain range that acts as the scenic break. So I broke out my old jigsaw and made short work of the plaster cloth and cardboard that was overhanging the backside. But what a mess it makes. So this is why I laid down all that packing paper and blue painter's tape just to catch all the debris. Once the mountains were cut back, I wanted to drop in a cliff face on the side towards the front of the layout, and then maybe do a smaller hill on the opposite side. But since then, I've also added some trackage along the very back side. I've actually extended the back end of the layout by about 2 or 3 inches, but that will be for a later video. I need to get all this finished and get the trains back into operations and running. Okay, so here's the basic concept. I glued down some sections of insulation foam to form a stop for the flat hardboard to sit on. So that way I don't have to cut 2 feet of hardboard when 2/3 of it's going to be covered by our mountain range. Then I built up the hill with sections of foam board, and I kind of put an angled cap on top, and that is there so that it keeps the hardboard flush with the front and the back side of the mountains. When I did a mock-up, I found that the foam board was great for keeping it aligned, but it really didn't have enough flexural rigidity to keep everything staying stationary. So I came back in and I strengthened and stiffened up everything with strips of plaster cloth before I moved forward to making the cliffs. What I did do is I went in on eBay and I found someone who was selling some Woodland Scenics plaster rock molds. They are old stock. They were discounted. They're a little stiff, but they still worked. I decided to use drywall compound to set the plaster castings in place. The compound gives me good adhesion and a long working time to kind of finagle the rocks in place and not have to rush through everything. I spread a thin coat of that compound over the flat section of the foam board, and then I came back and buttered the back side of the plaster and pushed it into place. Where the drywall compound squeezed out too far, I just smoothed it down with a gloved finger. It took me the better part of a week because I was just taking about a half hour, an hour before work in the morning. But this is what I ended up with. I'm pretty happy. There are gaps that need to be filled, and my plan is to fill those and make them just grassy bits on the hillside. And now, let me just say, if I had planned this from the start, I would have set both sides of the scenic break with a longer slope back toward utility to kind of make the hills look a little more realistic. But again, this is a learning layout, and I'm pretty happy with how it came out. Like I said, live and learn. Since the rock molds were made from plaster, I used alcohol and inks to stain the rocks. I mostly used gray and mixtures of gray and black for the main colors, occasionally mixing in burnt umber, raw sienna, and yellow oxide to give variations to the rocks. Once all the white plaster was covered, everything got a black mix. And this mix of solid black ink was mixed way down. Something like 3 or 4 drops of ink per pint of isopropyl alcohol. It's really hard for me to get a long view of this cliff face, but I did run my phone down the length of the backdrop, so you kind of get a feel for how the shading varies along the run, which is intentional because I want to kind of make this scene, whether you're coming east to west or west to east, you're transitioning from one type of rock to another type of rock. It's subtle, but it's there. Also, the drywall compound surprisingly did not take the ink as well as the plaster did. Like I said, I still need to do some touch-ups and get a base coat of brown on the tops and the in-between spaces in preparation for grass and trees, But for now, the large cliff face is complete. The last thing I got done in September, before the cold weather and the rainy weather got here in October, was to cut the hardboard down and start painting it blue. It was a nice day out, like I said, so I thought, why not spray them? The second side is going to need a thicker paint, as the spray paint is just not going to fill in these patterns that are on the back side. I think that's from the way they make the hardboard. I think it's made in a wet slurry and collected on a screen. You can kind of see the screen imprint here. Here you can see them kind of in place with the thoughts. They do need to get cut down to size. Once I decide how I'm going to build the continuation, I'm probably going to put some hills behind there, so the sky will have to pass behind that. And I need to get some clouds on them because they look just too plain and blue.
Well, there you go. That's not a lot of progress, but it's some. I still got some work to do, and winter's coming, so I'll have to move the space heater out here in the garage and keep it warm so I can start putting paints and scenery back there. And anyhow, if you enjoyed the video, please give a like and subscribe. And as always, happy model railroading.